Hello and welcome guys to another video, and today we have a very exciting one. I got the opportunity to drive the mini challenge cars at Brandsatch. It was just an open track day. I was invited by British Indoor Karting Championship and Biz Karts, and it was just an open track day, so there was a few other cars, some Aerial Atoms, some Nissan GTRs, a few Caterhams, and a few other random track day cars which were all very smart. I'll put a few pictures up now so you can take a look. Now going into this was my first real track day. I've done some karting, but I did nothing with cars on a real racetrack. So the first two sessions I did, they were 10 to 15 minute sessions. I wasn't able to record them because I was not allowed a camera on my helmet and we didn't have time to set it up in the car. So the two sessions I was able to get footage from are from my third and fourth session on track. So by this point I've had like 25 minutes ish in the car already. So there was three different coaches, and how this track day worked is your first coach did your first two sessions with you. The second coach was then in the car for one session to mark you, and then there was the third coach in for your fourth session to mark you. So you're marked by three different coaches. The driver of the day was the one with the highest marks, and they got to drive the John Cooper Works Mini Cooper for one session. But unfortunately we missed out on driver of the day by 1.5 points, which was a bit disappointing, but it was an awesome track day. So let's jump straight into it. The only thing is there's no sound whilst we're driving because there's so much vibration in the car that the audio is terrible, so I've just muted it. But let's jump straight into it. So here we are, just exiting the pit lane, and we just have to drive up to the marshals to check we're okay. First session I got stopped by the marshals and was told I wasn't allowed my camera, so we were able to get a green light that time and go straight out on track. Brandsatch has got the exit for the pit lane straight onto the apex of turn 1, so just as you see, checking my mirror on the left hand side and just trying to hold it to the right, because as I said at the intro, there was some very fast cars on track, like the Aerial Atoms and GTRs, and if you have a collision with one of them, then you're going to be in debt for a while, to say the least. But yeah, just trying to get the tyres warmed up. So today was a little bit damp at the start of the day. It did rain a couple times, but just very light. So we were running the intermediate tyres. Unfortunately, because it was so dry for most of the day, it did seem to burn up the intermediates fairly quickly. And now coming into turn 2, there's a little Fiat Punto, I think it was, in front of us. So just going a little bit easy, because with these track days, you're not allowed to overtake on the right, and you're not allowed to overtake in the corners. You can only overtake on the straights and on the left-hand side. So you can't try and outbrake someone or anything like that, because you will get in trouble with marshals. And I did not want that on a first track day. So coming through the little left and the right, on the left you can see where that cone is. There's basically a hole in the curb. I think there was a drain cover, so just had to watch there that you didn't clip that on the left. Here, just pulling over to the right, as you saw my coach, I think it was last season's Mini Cooper champion that was in the car with me in this session. So as I said, there was three different coaches you had all of them have won the mini challenge championship here in the UK. As I said, the one that's in the car with me just now won last year, and then the next session we'll see. I can't remember if he won 2 or 3 years ago, but all of them had won the championship at some point, so they were all very good coaches. Here again, that was the aerial atom going by, so just backing off. And as you can see, I use a little bit of the curving, but I was trying not to use too much because they're quite vicious with this setup. So I was trying to be a bit careful with the car and not use too much of the curbs. I think right at the end of this session I use a little bit too much curb, but at the same time you're not allowed to record the lap times on this track day. Just for insurance purposes, they don't let you record your lap times or anything like that. So I didn't really have any reason to push over the track limits, so I don't really use any of the curbs that much. As you see, that's about as much of the curbs as I really use over the day. This session really I was trying to work on braking harder for shorter period of time, because especially into turn 1 I was braking at the braking point, but because I wasn't braking hard enough initially, I was on the brakes for too long. So that's what the coach was trying to help me to do, is just the initial brake to be harder and then trail it off. I was kind of being gentle onto the brakes and then gentle off to the brakes, whereas I needed to slam the brakes on at the start and then gently trail it off. So I was just trying to work on that in this session. As you see a few times, just having a look to make sure there's nothing in the rear view mirror. There again, the coach is trying to remind me to brake harder into turn 1. As you see there, I get it a little bit better there. And what that does is it just allows me to get on the throttle a lot earlier. With these being front wheel drive cars, you want to try and brake. I think we were just letting someone by there, indicator on. Yeah, with these cars being front wheel drive, you want to get the rotation done in the braking point and then use the throttle to almost stabilize the car. You can't really use the throttle to rotate these cars because they're front wheel drive. If it was a rear wheel drive car, you can use the throttle to rotate it, but you can't with this. So you're trying to get the rotation done on the braking, so that's why I needed to be a bit harder on the initial braking. But at this point, I was fairly comfortable in the car. I was not pushing very hard because if you damage it, you still have to pay the excess on the insurance, which is not cheap. So I wasn't overly pushing the car, but it was very enjoyable once I got comfortable with the car. So that was a much better braking, a lot harder on the initial brake. Unfortunately, you can't actually hear any of the braking or the throttle inputs. Like I said, the audio just didn't work at all because there was so much vibration in the car. But like I say, I will try and get a camera with a microphone in the coming months, and that would hopefully help a bit. So here we're about halfway through this first session. And here again, I think there was a faster car. Yep, faster car on the left there, just waiting for him to go by and then returning to the racing line. I would say the driving was very... also you can see on my windshield that it's starting to get a little bit wet. There's just a little bit of a drizzle. You can just see the water on the front windshield there. You couldn't really notice any difference in the grip at all because there was hardly any water, but it did rain, I think, the night before, so the first few sessions were a little bit damp, but then we were having about 5 people in each car, so the track was drying out very quickly because there were so many other cars on track, and between each of your sessions, so we each got 4 sessions, there had been 4 other drivers between each of your sessions. So the track, I think, was a little bit damp for my very first session, and then after that, I think there wasn't any sessions where it was actually wet. It was just a little bit greasy. But with the intermediate tires, it was okay as well. As you see, they're trying to be harder on the brakes. You do tend to sometimes get a little bit of rear locking with these cars, so you just have to watch because it sometimes gets a little bit unstable into turn 1. So you've just got to correct it a little bit, which in this next session you're going to see happens a couple times. And then here, just using a little bit more of the curb. I think it's either the next lap or the lap after that I use quite a bit of the curb there. Here again, just watching that curb on the left because, like I say, I think it was a drain cover. I did not want to clip that because that would have been quite nasty. There are cars going into the pit lane, so just going a little bit wider. And then I think a faster car was coming here as well. We're just on the right hand side, and this is going to be our final lap of the first session. Just a couple cars. I think there was an ARL Atom on the left here that I was waiting on before I went to the racing line. Yeah, it was the ARL Atom, and then back onto the racing line. So we were one of the slower cars on the track day, so I was just being very careful to pay attention to my mirrors and not miss anything behind me. Here, as you see, I just try to push a little bit on the exit and use quite a bit of curb, which, as you see, can vibrate a lot more than it does in the simulator when you don't move at all. So then here, just moving over to the right, backing off as we come in, and it started to get a little bit more greasy just at the end of that session. So that was the first session pretty much done there. Really happy with the driving as it kind of improved over the session, getting a bit harder braking into turn 1. And as we came into the pit lane, he said that if I was actually on the grid, I would be midfield, no problem, which was a really nice compliment because we were only on our first track day. This was our 3rd session. So unfortunately, I don't have the budget to be on the grid. But if anyone happens to have a spare 100 grand, feel free to let me know because it would be very, very cool to be on the grid. So let's jump into the second session then. So this is our second session that we were able to record, the 4th and final one of the day. Just showing our bands to the marshals there because when you listen to the driver briefing and things at the start of the track day, you get given a band basically to prove that you're allowed to be on the track. So just have to show that to the marshals, and just when we driver changed in that, they just like to check it. So this time our coach is Matt Hammond, who I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years ago that he won the championship, but he also has won this Mini Cooper Challenge UK championship. So this, I think the card had 3 or 4 sessions because this was after the lunch break. So I think 3 or 4 people had been in before me, and then this was my final one. So I was just taking it easy for the first couple laps to just get the tires up to temperature. The only problem that I really had with this session was the fact that the rear view mirror was set up so that Matt could see the cars coming. But for the first 3 sessions I'd been in the car, the mirror was set up so I could see out the back, which is what I was pointing to there, which makes sense for Matt to be able to see any of the cars coming and let me know when to pull over to the side. The problem is that because you can hardly hear anything when you're driving, I didn't really like the fact that I couldn't actually hear what he was saying, because I wasn't sure sometimes if he was saying to back off to let someone by, or if he was talking about the corner coming up and things like that. So that put me off a little bit. In hindsight, it wasn't a big thing, but I didn't realize until we were already out on the track. So that just put me off a little bit because I could see out the rear view mirrors, but I just like to be able to glance up and see the rear view mirror to know when the cars are coming, which, like I say, had been the case for the first 3 sessions, but just tried to ignore that. The good thing with Matt, though, was that he was trying to get me to push the car harder, because for the first 3 sessions, basically the first 2 sessions were my first ones on the track, so I was kind of learning the basics of the car and just getting a feel for it, which was really nice. The third session, I was just trying to build on what the first coach had told me, which was to brake harder, and the second coach said the same thing, braking a bit harder on the initial brake. And then for the final session with Matt, he was really trying to help me to actually push the car closer to the limit, which I really enjoyed. So after I get through the first few laps, just heating up the tires, we'll be able to start pushing. I think we did have a few problems with there being a lot of traffic in this session. So I think for the first few laps, you'll see me back off a number of times, just letting cars past. So what Matt did was he let me just drive for the first, I think, 2 or 3 laps, and then he started showing me where I was losing time, which was really good. So I think here there was... No, sorry, I was just moving over to the right and then back to the left. So here into turn 1, again, just trying to be a bit harder on the brakes. Trying to use a bit more of the track than I was in previous sessions without using the curbing. And here into the hairpin, Matt was trying to help me to get off the clutch a bit earlier, because I was staying on the clutch into that hairpin for too long. So he was trying to remind me just to get off the clutch a bit sooner. So I was trying to do that. Unfortunately, with having no sound, you can't actually hear that. So they're just going past one car, and then I think just coming into this right-hander, we had to let somebody by, so we just stay on the right a little bit. Yeah, I can't remember which car it was now. It just staying on the right-hand side, lifting off a little bit. And then back to the racing line. There was the M4 there, which I don't think was there for some of the first sessions, but it was cool to see it in some of the final sessions, because there was 2 M4s owned by... I'm not sure if it was owned by the company that does the track day or if it was owned by Brands Hatch, but there was 2 of them going around basically coaching people, and I think there was some people driving them as well. You could pay to drive them. Here again, just letting another car by, I think, just before we turn into the left-hander. No, why? Oh, sorry. This is the only problem. The camera was so high up is that you can't see things coming on the camera. So yeah, we're just backing off because someone was going into the pit lane there, and then getting back on the power. So the main thing for this session was trying to get off the clutch faster into turn 2, and also taking a wider line around the final corner. That was the 2 main things with this session that I was trying to work on. But again, like I said, there was quite a bit of traffic in this session, as you're going to start to see. Here, just staying over a bit to the left. As you can see on the bottom left, you can see the speedo that with the track being shorter, you weren't actually going that fast. I think if you were going on the GP circuit, you would probably reach a higher top speed. So see there again, Matt just was really trying to help me use a wider line around that final corner, which, as you can start to see over the next few laps, when I actually am able to implement that, I get a much better exit out the final corner, because what I was doing is I was holding to the right side as I was entering the corner too much, whereas he was encouraging me basically to go straight towards the cone and then turn in. I was turning in far too early. So once we kind of got that sorted, that made a massive difference to the exit. And again, just coming off that clutch a lot quicker into that hairpin there. So it was quite good to have the difference of the coaches, because we had the first coach who helped me with the basics, getting a feel for the car, trying to find the driving lines, the driving style of the car and things like that. The second coach to really build on that, and then Matt helping me to push the car a bit harder as well. So see there again, heading straight for the cone, then turning in and then getting on the power, and that was able to give me a much better exit out of the final corner. There again, I think that was the Porsche passing us. I'm going to put some pictures on my Instagram. By the time this video is up, they'll probably already be there, but there was quite a few nice cars at the track day, and my grandpa got some good pictures of them, so I will post them to my Instagram and you guys can go have a look if you fancy. Here again, he was just trying to help me to turn in a bit later, because for that corner in the last few laps I'd just been turning in a little bit too early. So here again, you're going to see me try to head a bit more straight for the cone. So there's a cone, you can't quite see it on the edge of the track, and then turning in, which was obviously allowing me to get a much better exit because I wasn't so tight for the final corner. But as you see, I think it's about 95 miles an hour we were reaching on the main straight. Using a bit of the curb there. I was cautious of not using too much of the curb because I did not want to damage the car at all, because yeah, that would be expensive if I broke the suspension by using too much curb. But I was just a little bit of an oversteer there, just a bit too aggressive on the turning. But I was just really trying to get those later turn-ins so I could carry a bit more speed. Which is what Matt was really showing me, is just not turning in too early, because all that did was compromise my exit speed. And then also not getting on the throttle too early for the hairpin, because you cannot use the throttle to rotate. You need to use the brakes to rotate. So I was just trying to brake harder for a shorter amount of time. So here, this was the end of that session, just coming in a little bit shorter on this one, I think, than the first one. So just coming in for the end of that session. Again, I really liked how Matt helped me push the car a lot harder. So it was nice to have all three different coaches, all gave me some fantastic tips, and really, really enjoyed it. Again, a big thank you to Team Sport, BIKC, and BizKarts for the invite to the track day. A big thank you to all the coaches. The tips were fantastic and really helped me improve over the day. And a big thank you as well to all the mechanics for running the cars and answering all my questions and things that I had. And as always, guys, thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and see you again next time.